So, you know, Keith, we have lucked out. It's another beautiful spring, summerish type day, and we have a very packed show again today.
No kidding. We're going to start with lawns, move to tools and tomatoes, and then what?
You know, we're going out to Nick's Garden Center. We're going to talk Steppables, great ground covers for people who want to walk through the garden. And then Chef Mick is talking tomatoes. That's today on Dig In.
Join us on Dig In, presented by the Scott's Miracle Grow Company.
One of the difficult things, like this past May we've had here in Colorado, it has been cold and wet. And when we have those cold, wet springs, it reminds us the difference between cool season grasses and warm season grasses.
And what is that difference, pray tell?
Well, exactly what happens is grasses that are warm season grasses need a certain level of temperatures before they'll green up and look lush. They're also the first ones to go dormant in the fall with the first frost. So warm season grasses out here in Colorado would not be your choice, but there are a lot of great collections of cool season grasses that thrive and do very well here. And what would be some examples of those great cool season grasses?
Well, cool season grasses that grow here in Colorado usually fall into three species. Bluegrass, which gets a terrible rap here, and
Great
it really
grass.
doesn't deserve it. It's a good grass. Fescue, which is what we're standing on, and perennial ryegrass. And typically at the garden center, when you're going to get some seed for your lawn or even sod, you're going to find it's going to be a mixture of one or all three of those grasses.
Well, and the advantage of a mixture is by having a mixture, if you have a disease or an insect that comes in, a lot of times having that mixture will help combat the problem because you don't have just one variety.
Exactly. Now the beauty of bluegrass is it can go dormant when it gets dry. So if you have to stop watering for whatever reason, the grass will go brown. And as soon as the water returns, the grass will green back up. The other beautiful thing about bluegrass is that when you get thin spots in it, like the one that I'm standing on right now, bluegrass runs underground. It sends out shoots underground. So it'll fill in those thin spots and keep weeds from being a big issue. One of the reasons I like fescue when I'm dealing with that along flower beds and so forth is that fescue is a clump grass and it does not run underground. So it stays where it's put, and I'm not trying to fight it, getting it out of the flower beds where it typically grass likes to grow better than where you want it in the lawn.
Well, with a bluegrass lawn, you definitely have to put an edger on it
Yeah.
to keep it put exactly where you want it. There's advantages and disadvantages to both. Your best option is to make sure you talk to your garden center and ask them exactly what kind of grasses they have available to meet your exact needs.
Lawn care can be a very confusing subject, and when you go to the garden center, you're confronted with lots and lots of choices with fertilizers and weed killers and all sorts of equipment. What I'd like to do is take a little bit of that guesswork out for you. You'll need to fertilize the yard. That is important. I recommend something with a slow-release nitrogen fertilizer, something like this classic lawn food, but there are plenty of them out there. Scott's, Jordan's, you name it, there's a lot of varieties out there. Apply it with a good quality spreader. This happens to be a broadcast spreader which throws the stuff out in front of you. Following fertilizer in importance is watering. I'm a hose dragger. I don't have a built-in lawn sprinkler system, so I drag a hose and water my yard that way. And there's a lot of different sprinklers out there. My recommendation is choose a sprinkler that has a large droplet size and doesn't throw the water way up in the air. You want it to keep the water down low toward the ground so you don't lose a lot of water to evaporation. One I found that works really well is this dram sprinkler. And the reason I like it is it's got 7 or 8 different patterns on the top, on the head here, that you can just turn it to get a circle, a half circle, a square, a rectangle, whatever you need to water, so you're not putting water in areas you don't want to put water in. How much water to put down? One of my best tools that I can go to on the internet is denverwater.org. Go to their conservation button. They have local weather stations that collect data on how much rain and how much water we're losing to evapotranspiration. They call it ET. Now, say if we got a ½ inch of rain and a ½ inch of ET, then you're good. No water needs to be put down. But if we only got a ½ inch of rain and we had a full inch of ET, that means you've got a ½ inch deficit that you'll need to apply that week to make up the difference. Last but not least are a few problems that the lawn can have, but if you keep your lawn properly watered and fertilized, insects, diseases, and weeds are not going to be big issues for you. And the few weeds that do pop up, I can typically pull out by hand or with a little digger. But the tough ones like bindweed that'll show up or thistle, you will need a weed killer for. My personal favorite is the Fertilome Weed-Free Zone. It's an excellent weed killer to use in the lawn, won't hurt your grass, takes out those really tough weeds. The trick to using a weed killer is to make sure the weeds are big. Don't mow and then spray. Let them grow lots of leaves, then spray them while they're large. The more leaves they have, the more weed killer they collect, and down into the root system it goes to kill the weed. Aside from that, funguses come into a stressed yard, a weak yard. The liquid systemic fungicide or the Fertilome F-stop right here, either one of those will take care of just about any fungus that comes along. You don't even have to know which fungus it is. You just have to know it's a disease. If turf isn't your thing, if you're wanting to get rid of it, but you don't really like the idea of covering the world with gravel, we've got a package coming up right now that will help answer a few of those questions out at Nick's Garden Center with their Steppables program. It's pretty cool. Take a look.
We are at Nick's Garden Center. We're in Aurora, Colorado. We are just 2 blocks north of Iliff on Chambers. We're on the west side of the road. We have about 11 acres. We've been here since the late 70s. This is an area that we decided to build a Steppables display. We've displayed the different styles of stepping stones that people possibly have in their yards or are potentially interested in. And we showed them different ways that we can utilize these rocks and these stones and the plants in harmony. And these plants are really easy to grow. Once you get them planted, they're established themselves in a few years and you're good to go, and you have a great, beautiful steppable area, and you'll be the rave of the neighborhood for sure. Most of these are all gonna flower. They'll all have their time where they're gonna show off. Perennials have bloom times. They're typically for 6 to 8 weeks on a bloom time, and then they're just their normal selves after that, their leafy selves. But yes, there is many flowering types. The potentilla is a big favorite. Creeping potentilla is very popular because it's going to take a lot of heavy traffic. It's a full sun plant that's going to do great in sun, moderate moisture, just average, watering. Flowers its little bud off for like 2 months. And that's what people really like, is that bright yellow that's in between the stones, and it's a really nice, dense plant that will take a lot of abuse. You can use any kind of stones, you work in any kind of surface, and absolutely any kind of environment. We are able to accommodate any type of environment. Say you have partial sun, or you only have morning sun, or you only have hot afternoon sun. There is a perfect plant for every situation, and it's getting the best advice is most important. A lot of times you can go to other places and nobody's around to give you advice, or to talk to you about the plants and their behaviors and what they like and what they don't like. So a lot of times people get discouraged because they buy the wrong plant, and then the plant doesn't do what they want it to, and there really was a good plant for that situation. We've inspired hundreds of steppable gardens. They are regular clients that would have never done this before. They say, I think I have an area that will be really cool in. We have customers that come from Denver, we have customers that come from Parker, we have customers that come from Broomfield, and the reason they come here is because they want to talk to an expert. They don't want to go to a big box store and buy the wrong stuff and waste their money. They want to have good advice, and they want to be inspired. People will bring us in pictures, or they'll bring us in they'll email us photographs, and we're able to download them into a CAD program, and we can actually put the plants in front of their house and print them out a copy of what it's going to look like when they're done. And it's a wonderful, wonderful technology that we have nowadays. Some people just bring me in a sketch, and I sit down with them and I sketch in what I think would work well. We discuss the area, and they buy the stuff and they go, and they're so happy. They come in year after year and are very happy with the choices. They've tried many other things and they didn't work out for them.
Coming up next, building a collection of tools so you'll have the right tool for the job.
Howdy, this is Chef Mick from Tony's Market. Today we're going to be making a marinated tomato salad with some other beautiful garden vegetables. Stay tuned for Dig In.
Dig In, gardening, cooking, and more. Get the latest advice, tips, and recipes at digincolorado.com. Dig In, presented by the Scott's Miracle Grow Company.
Getting ready to plant? Chances are your soil is like this. Compacted, drained of nutrients. It'll hold your plants, but it'll also hold them back. The solution? Miracle Grow garden soil. The perfect mix of rich organic ingredients and Miracle Grow plant food. Just mix it in and turn bad soil into great soil. Helps plants grow twice as big. Instead of holding them back, they'll leap ahead. Miracle-Gro Garden Soil, and Moisture Control Garden Soil.
Professionals have grown with Dram watering tools for over 65 years. Discover the quality of Dram. Nurture your plants with a shower of rain. Select from 9 water patterns. Care for your lawn with quality that will last a lifetime. Dram, the professional's choice for lawn and garden, at a fine garden center near you.
Dig In with Keith Funk, MJ Engel, and Chef Mick Rosacci. Join us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Get the links at digincolorado.com. Dig In, presented by the Scott's Miracle-Gro Company. Dig In gives you advice about the best products for the season. It's time for the product of the week.
Grow fabulous vegetables and flowers in your garden with Miracle-Gro Garden Soil for flowers and vegetables. It's a simple 3-step process to feeding your garden for up to 3 months with Miracle-Gro Continuous Release Plant Food. Step 1. Dig a hole twice as big as your plant. Step 2. Mix the Miracle-Gro Garden Soil with your existing soil in about a 50-50 mix. Step 3. Plant and water. Use the soil in your outdoor gardens and landscape beds, but don't use it in pots. For your organic garden, try Miracle-Gro Organic Choice Garden Soil. Get more information at digincolorado.com.
One of the most important things about a garden is having the right tools to work in the garden.
I mean, every gardener needs a long-handled bow rake. That's a given. And a good quality hoe. And a nice leaf rake for cleaning up things. But once you start to get into shovels, it gets a little more complicated. Me, I like stainless steel because I'm not real good at keeping my tools clean and rust-free. I also like to get a good quality shovel, one with a closed back. You can see on this shovel right here, as opposed to this disposable shovel over here. I call them disposable shovels. Yes, because these will break off. These will break off fairly easily in heavy clay soil. So look for a shovel with a heavy closed back. They'll be more expensive.
But long term, you don't have to keep replacing it every year.
Yeah, and I like to keep a little file. This is just a little metal file you can get at the hardware store. I like to keep that handy with me for my shovels and hoes because you can take these things and you can put a nice edge on them as they get dull. And you just want to sharpen the front edge at about a 45-degree angle. So just coming in there and just sharpening it like this. Real simple to do, doesn't take much effort. Do that on a regular basis. You'll keep a nice sharp edge on your tools and it makes digging a whole lot easier. Now, aside from long handle tools, what have you got?
Well, you know, a lot of times not every project you have in the garden is going to require a large tool, so some smaller tools are always handy. You know, finding a good trowel that has a serrated edge to it so that when you're digging the ground, because our ground is so hard out here, it can actually penetrate, and roots.
Yes.
You know, heck, I like to use the edge of to help me open up even bags while I'm working in the garden.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, to crack things open. My favorite though, and some of my most important tools are going to be a good pair of pruners. You know, I've seen some really inexpensive pruners, but you know, you go to use them in the garden and you can't get anything done.
The blade spreads and then you can't cut anything.
The blade spreads and you're frustrated. It's tearing your plant apart. It's not healthy for the plant. And what's handy is to have a little sharpener so that once again, kind of like your shovel, that we're keeping these blades sharp. It makes it much more effective when you're trying to prune things because you're getting easier on your hand, getting things done, especially because you're not wasting time. My other favorite tool is for those branches while you're cleaning up in the garden that are a little bit larger. You really want a good blade for that. And a good pruning saw should have offset blades so that the sharpness that rotates on each side of the blade. So when you're cutting, you can really get a nice clean cut so you're not tearing at that bark.
Tree saws cut on the pull stroke rather than the push, which is different than wood cutting saws.
So you don't want to just buy any saw that you see in the hardware store.
Right.
This is very specific. So, you know, good tools just help you get the job done and do it well. Littler trowels that'll help you in the garden, all that stuff for the smaller.
That's my favorite.
For the little smaller projects. I think you've used this a time or two.
That, you know, if you ever need to get some frustrations out, you can take that thing and just whack away at stuff. It's great. But you know where we are going to go is over to the vegetable garden because you've got some tomatoes to plant.
I think it's my favorite vegetable. My kids love it too. So tomatoes are my thing. Also coming up next is Chef Mick, and he's making some ensalada caprese sticks.
Dig In with Keith Funk, MJ Engel, and Chef Mick Rosacci. Join us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Get the links at digincolorado.com. Dig In, presented by the Scott's Miracle Grow Company.
Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more.
Want your weeds to hit the road? Hit them with Roundup Extended Control. One application kills weeds and puts down a barrier to stop new ones for up to 4 months. Roundup Extended Control. Spray once, stop weeds for months.
Dig in, gardening, cooking, and more. Get the latest advice, tips, and recipes at digincolorado.com. Dig In, presented by the Scott's Miracle Grow Company.
It's a weeding dream again?
What does it mean?
It means tomorrow we're using Ortho Ground Clear.
Ground Clear doesn't just get rid of weeds, it gets rid of weeding.
How?
By killing weeds for up to a year. Just use it once to kill the weeds you have and to prevent new ones from growing.
It keeps the ground clear for up to a year? Pinch me, I'm dreaming.
About me?
Huh? Ortho Ground Clear.
Defend what's yours.
Today's Dig Info is about how to measure the amount of water you're putting down when you're watering your lawn. One way to do that is to get these little cups. This happens to be from a company called Revive. Most of the garden centers will have these free for the taking. I'd get several of them and stick them out in the yard, in several places around your sprinklers, and measure how much water you're putting down at the end of your sprinkler cycle. All you have to do is pick it up and read on the side. It'll tell you that you put down 1/2 inch or 3/4 or whatever. It's good information to know on whether or not you're letting your sprinklers run long enough or possibly too long. It's a great indication as to whether your sprinklers are putting out an even pattern throughout your sprinkler system, or if you're a hose dragger like me, if you're getting an even distribution of water all the way around your sprinkler. And there you have it. That's today's Dig Info.
One of my absolutely favorite things to plant in a garden, and my children's favorite item, are tomatoes. But a lot of people sometimes are intimidated about exactly how to plant a tomato and that they're going to be difficult. So we're going to cover some tips today to make it very easy for you. Now, there's a lot of things you can grow by seed, but tomatoes are not one that I'd recommend. Going into your independent garden center and getting a nice, healthy, thick plant is exactly how you're going to want to start. Look for really dark green foliage and look for a stem that's nice and thick. When you get the tomato home, you're going to want to make sure you take it out of that pot by just gently squeezing it around, and it'll pop right out. You always know a good quality plant like this one from Hardy Boy because the root system is nice and white on the outer edge of the pot. So now you're going to take this, you don't have to ruffle it up too much. But tomatoes are one of those few vegetables that when you put it in the ground, you can actually plant it deeper than the soil level, and along the stem it'll root out. So if you want to make sure it's a little bit thicker and stockier, you can go ahead and plant it a little deeper right into the ground without a great deal of difficulty. We've prepped the soil, but keep in mind that a soil amendment is not feeding the plant. It is not a fertilizer. So I have a couple of different fertilizers that I'd recommend. One of them is Happy Frog. Now, a lot of people are familiar with this, but we're going to make sure that everyone knows that you want a fertilizer for tomatoes that has some calcium in it. It helps prevent blossom end rot. It's that nasty stuff that on the bottom of your tomatoes, they look black and sunken in, and they just don't look good and they don't look tasty. So by using a fertilizer that's specific to our tomatoes that has some calcium in it, we can prevent it. Now, you can also buy something like Yield Booster that has a calcium spray in it. It comes in a concentrate. You can also find it in a ready to spray bottle. You can spray right on the tomato to make sure you give it some extra calcium to help prevent that blossom end rot. Now, if you can't plant it in the ground, then you can also use any kind of containers at home, or Miracle Grow has come out with these new grow bags, and simply place them on your patio or on your deck, pull them back, and they've got the holes right here so you can plant tomatoes and have them at home. Great project for the kids as well, so that everybody can have a great successful garden. But once you have success and you've got these tomatoes growing and they're getting nice big and really large, you're going to have to make sure that they are contained, that they've been caged. And Keith is going to show you exactly how to do it.
So MJ did a real nice job of planting this tomato for me, and now it's time to add the hardware. Add your caging this time of year, or your staking this time, because when this plant gets bigger, it's really hard to shove a little cage down on top of it. Now, these little cages that you see at the garden center are great for small plants like peppers and other things, but not tomatoes. So we're not going to use that. Then you can also get these big giant things, which will work. I think they're a little bit on the flimsy side, but if you're going to use a cage like this, get the biggest one you can find. I like to go with something that's a little bit more durable, and that's why I've switched over to this folding cage that you can put on the plant like so, stick it in the ground, and you can stack them one on top of another as the tomato grows, and there's plenty of room to reach in and grab tomatoes. There are determinate types of tomatoes and indeterminate types of tomatoes. Determinate means they grow to a certain size, they stop growing, produce their fruit, and they're done. Those are usually things like the Italian Roma tomatoes that you use for tomato paste. Most other tomatoes just keep growing upwards and don't stop. Those are indeterminate, and caging works very nicely for them. Good luck with your tomatoes.
Hi, this is Chef Mick from Tony's Markets. Got a great little tip for you using up those cherry tomatoes out of the yard. I'm going to take some toothpicks here, I'm going to slide a cherry tomato on the toothpick, a basil leaf, you can fold it in half, and then this is a ciliegie. It's a little baby mozzarella ball. We go ahead and put these out here on the plate. We'll stack these up. If you can use different colored tomatoes, it's wonderful. And these cherry tomatoes are great because they grow so easily and you get so many out of a plant. So we're going to stack them on here. We'll make a nice stack of them. I'm going to drizzle them with a nice olive oil. Get your best finishing olive oil in there. Give them a little drizzle. A little bit of balsamico di Modena. This is a magical ingredient. It's a very sweet, syrupy balsamic vinegar. And just a little salt and pepper. Got the recipe for you on digincolorado.com. Let's dig in. Stick around because coming up next we're going to make a marinated tomato salad with garden vegetables and some grilled sausage.
Dig in, gardening, cooking, and more. Get the latest advice, tips, and recipes at digincolorado.com. Dig In, presented by the Scott's Miracle Grow Company.
It's a weeding dream again?
What does it mean?
It means tomorrow we're using Ortho Ground Clear.
Ground Clear doesn't just get rid of weeds, it gets rid of weeding.
How?
By killing weeds for up to a year. Just use it once to kill the weeds you have and to prevent new ones from growing.
It keeps the ground clear for up to a year? Pinch me, I'm dreaming.
About me?
Huh? Ortho Ground Clear.
Defend what's yours.
Dig In with Keith Funk, MJ Engel, and Chef Mick Rosacci. Join us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Get the links at digincolorado.com. Dig In, presented by the Scott's Miracle Grow Company.
Professionals have grown with Dram watering tools for over 65 years. Discover the quality of Dram. Nurture your plants with a shower of rain. Select from 9 water patterns. Care for your lawn with quality that will last a lifetime. Dram, the professional's choice for lawn and garden, at a fine garden center near you.
Hi, this is Chef Mick from Tony's Markets. Today we're working on tomatoes, and I've got a lovely marinated tomato recipe for you here. We're going to start by slicing tomatoes, and ideally you want to use several different types of tomatoes. Get a nice sharp knife, give it a good little wiggle movement to break that skin. That's the secret to getting it cut right. So we're going to set these on the plate, scatter them out here, and we will come back with some other vegetables. Some cucumber. I'm going to cut a segment out of the cucumber. Sometimes they're really rough. You can take like a veggie peeler and knock the rough parts back or peel just a little bit of that skin off if you like. I kind of like the skin. I don't take too much off. Another thing you could do is use a zester to get kind of a fancy little stripe going on here. But again, I don't want to take too much off because that's actually a good healthy part of the vegetable to eat. For this, I want to cut them into strips. So I'm going to cut around the center. I'm not thrilled with the seeds. You can use the seeds, absolutely. But I will cut it like this into little strips. Okay, these may be a little bit long, so I'm going to cut them again real quick. And get a little angle on there. That just helps it look nice. Scatter them on. Next, peppers. I will take the whole side off the pepper here. And then we're going to cut these into strips. I like to take a side off the onion so it's not too big, and then cut it along the same direction as the ribs, nice and thin. This is called slivering. I've got some asparagus. I actually pre-blanched this. I don't want this too big either. I'm going to cut these in long little biases. Now some mushrooms. So I'm going to kind of lift and mix this a little bit better. So some of the vegetables are near the bottom. They're all mixed in evenly. I think that looks pretty nice, and scatter it out. Then we're going to finish it with dressing. I'm going to use this balsamic vinaigrette. Another one would be great is our Cabernet Sauvignon vinaigrette. This is really, really delicious. A little bit sweetness to it. But the balsamic would be really safe. Now, if you go to get the recipe off digincolorado.com, I've given you a recipe for a nice, simple vinaigrette with lemon and a little bit of mustard in there. It's really nice. Ideally, I would let this marinate for a couple of hours. While this marinates, we're going to go ahead and clean up our mess here, and we're going to work on some grilled Italian sausage to go with it. Oh, and this sausage is cooked just right. Cut it into slices here. I like to grill the sausage and let it sit for about 5 minutes before I use it. That way the juices stay in the sausage rather than draining all over the board. So I've got one sausage here I'm going to put on a bun. We'll try one this way, and we're going to try one on the little pieces of bread like this here. We'll just put little slices on there. This would be more for an appetizer. And let's go ahead and finish off our salad. A little bit of cheese. I've got some feta cheese here, or a chev, or you could use Parmesan curls would be great. Some chopped herbs. I've got some tarragon and some basil and some oregano out of the garden. These grow wonderfully. Give that a sprinkle on top. Some olives. Some nice pitted olives, Kalamata olives. We can serve this with our sandwich on the side. We could put this on top of our sandwich. That would really be nice. Oh yeah. Now we're talking. So a marinated Italian salad with tomatoes and garden vegetables, along with some grilled Italian sausage. And then we've also got some appetizer size ones we can do here. Put a little marinated tomato on there. Beautiful. You can get this recipe and all the recipes today at digincolorado.com. Let's dig in.
Today was a fantastic day to play in the garden.
It was kind of cloudy and cool. Really nice.
You gotta love Colorado.
Absolutely, and hopefully you learned a little bit about lawns and how to plant tomatoes and having the right tool for the job.
Thanks again to Nick's Garden Center for showing us their fantastic display of Steppables. Make sure to get out there and check it out. And you know, Chef Mick, what you can do with a tomato is simply amazing.
Tremendous.
For all of this information, make sure to join us on digincolorado.com. As always, thanks for joining us today on Dig In.
So that's today's Dig In. No, it's not. Dig Info.
It's a very sweet, syrupy balsamic vinegar. It is really slow to pour. It's gonna pour, I promise.
So if you have a patio home or you're living in a short little area.
There you go. Now at this point I gotta stop. That onion is so strong, it's burning my eyes. Get this thing out of here.